Hello there, and welcome to Serenity Study, where I give my thoughts on the latest forms of entertainment. For today's video, I'll be breaking down a show from the well-known and acclaimed Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just like many in the early 2010s, I was drawn to the spectacle that was the MCU, most notably Captain America and the Winter Soldier, as it was the first Marvel film that grabbed my attention in theaters back in 2014. The story of a man out of time trying to find his place in this modern world full of espionage, corruption, and deception, and how he is able to find friends, a team, and eventually a place to call home. Two standout characters from this film were Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson, brilliantly played by Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie. So after old Steve Rogers hangs up the shield, how could we not want a series continuing the stories of Sam and Bucky? A show that encompasses the buddy cop chemistry these two characters shared on and off screen.
We had to sing a duet together.
What could go wrong? Well, they showed us. The root issue with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier lies in the writing. See, before 2020, the characters of Bucky and Sam in the MCU had really only been handled by the writing talents of Marcus and McFeely. They wrote the screenplay for all the Captain America films and Infinity War. With them no longer screenwriting for the MCU, Kevin Feige saw the opportunity to take the franchise in a different direction, leading to him hiring Malcolm Spellman, a man who saw the Falcon and Winter Soldier show to be a huge opportunity to, quote, explore the idea of whether or not a black man could become Captain America. Yeah, more on that in a bit. The first episode of the show actually starts with very promising concepts of arcs for our heroes to follow. I like how it starts out with introducing us to Sam's Falcon skills and abilities in an action-packed sky chase. However, the show never goes over how Sam was able to work alongside the U.S. Air Force despite being a fugitive with Captain America after Civil War. If the writers wanted to take advantage of a reason for Sam starting in a low place, this is something they could have explored but didn't. Instead, they chose to use a more trendy reason to put Sam in a low place that felt very out of touch with his previously established character. Later on, Sam decides to donate the shield that Steve gave him to the Smithsonian Museum. One might think that Sam's main motive for doing this is because he doesn't think anyone could ever live up to the mantle that Steve left, showcasing the self-doubt Sam has about himself and his abilities to be a hero and the leader America needs. This would have set up a self-confidence building journey from where Sam goes from someone that always used to fly wingman to a team leader. However, if you were to ask Spellman or many others behind the production crew of the show, they'll tell you that the main reason Sam doesn't feel like he should take up the shield is because he's got too much melanin in his skin and America equals systemically racist. To accomplish this narrative, the show has to consistently invent scenarios to make Sam feel oppressed with little to no explanation. Whether it's not being able to get a bank loan for his sister's failing business despite being an Avenger with brand new Stark tech and working for the government, or being confronted by a police officer who doesn't recognize him and asks Bucky if Sam's bothering him after they were just talking in the street. These were scenarios that directly contradict the previously established MCU world and are made to drive a social narrative the writers wanted to explore. In order to push this narrative, the writers wanted you to forget about Gabe Jones serving as a Howling Commando, forget Rhodey serving as Iron Patriot, forget Nick Fury serving as the Director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and forget everything Sam has done for the U.S. Air Force. They only want the audience to focus on how Sam, his sister, and Isaiah Bradley have been wronged by their country because of conveniently placed situations that could be labeled as part of a systemic racial problem. So rather than continue what was written before with a bunch of black heroes who knew how to handle themselves with guns when the situation demanded it, Marvel chose to use Sam's character as a racial tool to drive a trendy narrative that black characters are oppressed, resulting in them literally and figuratively stripping Sam of his guns, reducing him to a victim who sympathizes with terrorists. Okay, so now let's talk about James Buchanan Barnes, aka Bucky, aka ex-Winter Soldier. We start out with a nightmare flashback of the Winter Soldier to showcase how Bucky is still haunted by all the innocent people he killed as the Winter Soldier. I like how the show touched on the struggles Bucky's having adapting to the modern world since he has had his mind cleaned in Wakanda. You'd think Steve would have helped Bucky more through this experience, but I guess he's got other priorities in the past or in an alternate timeline. I don't know, it's never really explained. Even so, it's nice to see Bucky have some real struggles and have the chance to make amends to people he's wronged, ridding the Winter Soldier forever. Except that this arc is hardly ever touched upon in the show after the first episode, and when it is, it's the bare minimum. When Bucky finally does tell Yuri about killing his son, the only reaction we see is him asking why. Bucky says he didn't have a choice and then proceeds to walk out, and we never get to see whether or not Yuri forgave him. Bucky then proceeds to leave behind the one item Steve bothered to give Bucky to help him adapt to his new life. For the rest of the show, Bucky is pretty much reduced to just following other characters around and consistently complaining about one guy. However, Bucky does assist with the breakout of Zemo, which seems really out of character for a guy who is trying to right his wrongs and was previously taken advantage of by Zemo. You think Bucky would be the one guy who wants to keep a criminal like Zemo in jail, but the plot needs to happen. As for Bucky's action scenes, he gets seriously nerfed. In The Winter Soldier and in Civil War, Bucky could go toe-to-toe with Cap and Iron Man, but in this show he keeps getting whooped by young super soldiers who seem to have little to no combat experience. Bucky's old arm was capable of doing some of the coolest combat things in the previous films, and you'd think he'd do some cool stuff with his new vibranium arm, but all it could really do is block bullets and fall off. One thing I was looking forward to in this show was seeing Bucky and Sam really learn to work together as a team to get a mission done. But there's never really a scene where this happens. When together, we only see them mostly arguing, staring at each other, fixing a boat, and more arguing, which is all pretty lackluster and boring. When Bucky and Sam finally do work together as a team, it's to attack a government agent and not to go after the actual global threat in the show. The climax of their friendship is Bucky apologizing to Sam for not understanding what it meant for a black man to be given Cap's shield. I already went over why this line is ridiculous to hear in the MCU, but I guess the legacy of the shield is complicated. So Steve was somehow in the wrong for putting that expectation on Sam. Overall, I think the main reason why they kind of pushed Bucky's skills aside was so that he didn't overshadow Sam, who's slated to be the new and only Captain America. Even though if Sam and Bucky worked better together, they may be able to fill the void Steve Rogers left. Let's move on to Sharon Carter, another character from The Winter Soldier and Civil War with plenty of character potential. Going into the show, I was afraid they would continue to underutilize her character. With Black Widow now gone, there's a hole that needs to be filled. So I was hoping that she would either join Bucky and Sam's team or develop a romantic connection to one of them in order to play a bigger role as Agent 13. The role that they ended up giving her was much worse. Apparently she's now the power broker, a reveal everyone saw coming after she was shown having a forged art business, underworld connections, and always showing up conveniently at the right place at the right time. When he first sees Sharon, she starts complaining to Sam about losing her CIA position by helping steal Cap's shield and Falcon's wings to save Bucky from Zemo. And this just really frustrates me because it's not at all the character Marcus and McFeely left us with. What made Peggy Carter so great was that she didn't regret risking her position by helping Steve cross enemy borders because she knew it was the right thing to do. What happened to the Sharon that also wouldn't regret helping Steve do the right thing, even if everyone is telling her that the right thing is wrong? Her character was so mishandled that it left some fans thinking that she was a Skrull the whole time. With the three main former heroes all morally demolished, I would have assumed we'd have no one left to root for. But think again. Enter John Walker and Lemar Hoskins, the real heroes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. When I first saw Walker in the trailer, I thought maybe he'd think being Captain America would be an easy job, that he would only be arrogant, inexperienced, and just a government PR guy, not willing to help in the field. But instead, Walker was shown to be someone who has a lot of self-doubt, cares for his friends, committed to his marriage, is well-trained and experienced, and doesn't easily take out his challenges. These are not traits found in characters like Gilmore Hodge, which is what some would want you to falsely believe. Of course, Walker does have flaws, just like every other relatable character that follows the hero's journey. Walker is the one who takes up the early call to do the impossible task of filling the shoes of Captain America, is unsure if he's worthy enough for the job, shows up to do his best, consistently struggles, mourns the loss of his closest friend, fails to keep his emotions in check, is rejected and abandoned, only to not give up, to continue doing what he knows to be right despite what anyone thinks of him. And when it comes down to his final confrontation, he is given the option to either seek revenge on the one that killed his friend or save the lives of hostages. He chooses the latter, solidifying him as being the only character with a fully fleshed out arc in this show. Walker is the hero that proved he could fill the leadership role that Steve abandoned. However, he doesn't need to continue parading around as Captain America to find his worth. He could be his own kind of hero. He could be the best U.S. agent he could be. Don't believe me? Well, then let's compare Walker with how Sam is portrayed in this show. As Captain America, Steve's most notable characteristics as the leader of the Avengers was informing everyone where to be and what to do to best utilize their strengths. Steve always shows up when needed to help his allies and doesn't hold back when trying to stop those who threaten innocent human life. Steve will kick a pirate off a ship and knife their hand if he has to in order to save hostages and preserve their free will. When given the opportunity to utilize Bucky's strength while investigating the Flag Smashers, Sam doesn't tell Bucky any plan. When Walker tries to work together with Bucky and Sam to discover why there's more super soldiers, Sam isn't willing to be a team player at all. When Bucky and Sam are in desperate trouble, Walker and Lemar show up to help. When Walker and Lemar are being attacked by the Dora Milaje, Bucky and Sam are resistant to help them. When super soldier terrorists that have been shown to be a major threat to human life are on the move, Sam isn't persistent in neutralizing them, but would rather try to talk them down. Even after they threaten his sister and nephews and point a gun to his head, he still resists fighting them. He never attempts to take the gun away or arrest them for their crimes like T'Challa rightfully did with Zemo in Civil War. Sam was way more persistent when it came to fighting Walker to get the shield back over stopping global terrorists. Speaking of terrorists, let's talk about the Flag Smashers, shall we? The Flag Smashers' philosophy is, to put it nicely, not fleshed out very well. Their motto is one world, one people, so live accordingly. But they never say who this world and its people should be living under, and they don't have a moral code they live according to. Any morals they have are thrown out the window when it gets in the way of achieving whatever their goal is at the time. When we are first introduced to the Flag Smashers, we see them breaking into what appears to be a bank. When confronted by Torres, who actually does attempt to stop them, unlike Sam, they punch him in the face. When we first see Karli, she gives a sadistic smile to Bucky before kicking him out of a moving truck. They bomb a building, killing 3 people, then attempted to murder Walker, resulting in the death of Lemar, who bravely sacrificed himself to save his best friend. Later they take 2 truckloads of people as hostages, and Karli drives one of them off the edge to their doom. When Walker attempts to prevent the truck from falling, the rest of the Flag Smashers take him down. Fortunately, Sam is there to catch the truck with his new suit, despite it being physically impossible for him to do so without him crushing his arms in the process. Marvel should have at least given Sam super soldier serum if they wanted us to believe he could do things like this rather than pretend he could be Captain America without it. The more believable scenario would have been if Sam and Walker worked as a team, pushing and pulling the truck to safety. But instead the writers have to tear Walker down to lift Sam up. And if you don't like the idea of Sam working together with Walker, then you could easily replace him with Bucky. In her final moments, Karli is merely a second from shooting Sam, only to be stopped after being shot by Sharon. At least Sharon did one heroic thing in this show. Karli and the Flag Smashers are consistently shown to be a terrorist threat, yet the writers want us to sympathize with them. Sam gives Sharon a nasty look after she saves his life, and then proceeds to carry Karli's body down for everyone to see her as some sort of martyr. Yes, Sam chooses to give Karli medical attention over a wounded Sharon, who Karli had shot earlier. Sam proceeds to give a speech to the former GRC hostages in a debate over the complexities of reestablishing borders and providing aid and housing to either those who were snapped or weren't. And what's Sam's heroic solution to this problem, you ask? Do better. That's it. Sam's final resolution is becoming the wokeified speech-giving Captain America he was in the failed comic book run. This is simply one of the worst character arcs I've seen in the MCU, but certainly not the worst in all of film. It seems to be a popular trend in comic books and in film to give African Americans the title of a character that was once formerly Caucasian, as if it gives them more credibility or something. Why should this be? Why can't Sam be his own hero and continue to be the best Falcon he could be, or be a new hero called American Eagle or something? Why must he resort to finding validity by taking the role as, quote, the real Captain America? Later on in the show, Zemo gets the last laugh, as we see his butler putting an end to the rest of the Flag Smashers before they escape. I took a sigh of relief witnessing them not being able to be in any further sequels. Lastly, let's talk about Zemo. Zemo was a character whose portrayal in the show would really determine its success. And I think it's safe to say that the writers underutilized Zemo's character and potential. I think Zemo should have been the main antagonist of the show. It would have been cool to see him escape prison on his own, hunt down young super soldiers who aren't terrorists, and attempt to restart his own form of Hydra in the criminal underworld to infest the world governments, similar to what Darth Maul did in the Clone Wars. Zemo is part of Hydra in the comics, and he's been studying their methods more than anyone else in the MCU. It would have made sense. We only get to see Zemo put on the mask once in the entire show, and we aren't shown why the mask carries any significance. The best moments with Zemo are when he's bribing kids with sweets to get information, shoots down Karli to then smash all but one of the super soldier containers, and shoots the doctor who made the serum. However, he doesn't do anything too significant outside of that. The show misses expanding on Zemo's vast Sokovian military experience, serving as the commander of Echo Scorpion. Instead, Marvel decided to use Zemo's screen time for other purposes. When given the chance to escape after the Dora Milaje decide to point their spears at everyone in the room but Zemo, all Zemo does is visit the Sokovia Memorial. The writers then wanted us to believe that Bucky was actually going to shoot Zemo after this, even though we know he doesn't, due to this scene being shown in the trailers. The Dora Milaje then escort Zemo away to be taken to the raft because Marvel needs to save his character potential for a later sequel rather than best utilize him now. Plus, if the Dora Milaje were just going to take Zemo to the raft instead of Wakanda, why were they so hostile to Walker, who would have taken Zemo to the raft anyway? Oh, that's why. Some last thoughts on events that happened in the show include them wasting Batrocc's character in the finale only to kill him off. Sebastian Stan did a really good job acting in the scene with him in Wakanda. The remix of the Star Spangled Man with a Plan theme was phenomenal. The scenes with Isaiah Bradley getting his own section in the museum was nice, because veterans should be remembered and honored. However, the show never really dives deep into why or how Isaiah was experimented on. I like to assume they used Steve's blood to give him his strength, and that it was the Hydra part of S.H.I.E.L.D. who experimented on him in an attempt to create their own super soldier serum. My overall conclusion of the show would be that it's a waste, but not a complete waste. It's a waste of the characters Sam, Bucky, Sharon, Zemo, and more. It's a waste of potential for the actors involved. A wasted opportunity to not reinvent Hydra. It's a wasted opportunity to not set up a team to carry on the legacy of Captain America, and the waste of a show that was supposed to dive into what it means to be a hero, which was a subject the director of the show wanted to touch on. She refers to Steve and Walker as heroes of the past, and Sam as the hero of the future, saying that today's heroes have to expand to first responders rather than soldiers and warriors. This goes along with modern culture's push to demonize the classic timeless hero. And I don't think she's referring to police officers or firefighters when she says first responders based on watching the show, but rather social workers, therapists, and counselors. And I'm not saying these jobs have no importance. However, when dealing with criminals who are an active threat to the general public, whether it's in the comic book world or the real world, we need strong defenders who know how to handle a big stick rather than those who only resort to pacifism. Let law enforcement do their best to bring in criminals and enforce the law justly, then let the counselors talk to them once they're already in custody. Going back to speaking about waste, one wouldn't even have to watch this show in order to see the next film. You could go right from Sam saying he'll do his best in Endgame, right to him being Captain America in the next film. There's no need to waste time watching racial drama, sympathizing with terrorists who are all now dead, seeing Zemo leave prison just to go back, Sharon staying with the CIA, and Bucky still being referred to as the Winter Soldier in the show's title, even though Sam gets to have his change to Captain America in the finale. It's like they are saving anything that is actually consequential to the MCU for Captain America 4. Hopefully Marvel would hire a better writer for that film. Or maybe not. The only standouts of the show with actual character arcs are Walker and Lemar. Walker for his self-discovery journey, becoming US agent, and Lemar for his self-sacrifice. Even if Lemar's time in the MCU was short-lived, he left a greater impression on me than most characters. Without the inclusion of Walker and Lemar, I'd give the show an almost failing grade, but with them I'm going to give the show a 6.5 out of 10. They are the only reason why I'd consider rewatching the show. In the end, it seems like the audience's reaction to the show was mostly split, hence the mediocre score. Those who hated Walker didn't want him to have a redemption arc and wanted Karli to do less crazy things, but loved Sam's racially motivated arc. Those like myself thought that the show was way too sympathetic to Karli, unfairly treated Walker like a rage monster at points, and didn't like the racial undertones. There were even quite a few people that seemed to just stop watching the show after the second episode. By trying to please a wider audience of certain types of fans, it seems like Marvel isn't fully pleasing anyone anymore post-Endgame. Will this lead to what is the beginning of a downfall for the MCU? Or is the MCU just too big to fail at this point? Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you liked the video, as I plan on making more reviews. Or comment down below if you thought I missed something, disagreed with something, or liked something I discussed. Also, follow me on Twitter at ReeSaunders99. Till next time. Goodbye, old friend.